When it comes to the lesson, it's like watching a well crafted book adaptation that knows when to take pauses and beats to allow its audience to ponder and theorize, and when to push things forward so that they have something to allow them to understand whether or not they were right, wrong, or else experience a new development in the story. To summarize the movie, Liam is a well educated young man working on his first novel, Tower 24, and to get by, he's a tutor. He finds himself tutoring this well-off kid named Bertie, who's the son of J.M. Sinclair, who's had a notable run when it comes to his own novels. But for the last 5 or so years, J.M. hasn't produced anything, and part of it is because his son Felix died by suicide. But now, J.M. is trying to finish his latest novel, and while he's doing that, Helene, who is Bertie's mother, J.M.'s wife, is trying to make sure that her son gets into Oxford and contracts with Liam in order to get the job done, which is the original purpose of Liam being there. However, as time goes on, his position in the household evolves from creating a bond with J.M. to Helene deciding to modify his contract and what he's expected to do. All of which leads to a lot of reveals in his isolated home out in the countryside, and Liam getting a whole different story to tell beyond what he wrote for his original debut novel. So, in terms of notable highlights when it comes to the lesson, it has to be how it uses beats and just time in order to not do what most films feel like they're doing, where they're just trying to extend itself in order to reach that 90-minute time frame, but instead to allow you to really think about what just happened, theorize what's going to happen next, and sort of allow yourself to think about how things are shifting when it comes to the story and characters. For whether it's just Liam deciding to go for a swim, you taking note of Helene's face as she's watching something, like, for example, having, or whether allowing, Liam to watch her have sex with her husband, it leads to you having to raise an eyebrow, and as little things are said or revealed that make you question things, it's good to have this moment where you can kind of reflect on what's happened. And I would even say at the certain parts, especially toward the end of the movie, it's almost like you want to, if you could, rewind back to the beginning just to double check if you actually heard something was said the way you thought it was, just so you can double check before things go forward. Because it's that kind of movie which has this sort of replayability without you having to get to the end first. So for the next highlight, it's how the film evolves over time. In the beginning, it just seems like it's going to be Liam tutoring Bertie, who really does not seem to need a tutor, but because of how much J.M. has pretty much dismantled his self-confidence, Liam's going to build him up, and while that happens, it's going to be some weird things going on with Helene, J.M., and Liam because they're the adults here, and clearly Helene's unhappy in her relationship. However, as time goes on, it becomes so much more than that, because as the topic of Felix is introduced and his suicide, you kind of are left to wonder with how Helene talks about how they enjoy the isolation, even if it comes with, the occasional power out. Did Felix really kill himself, or was he murdered? And then when you introduce Ellis, who is the butler, and how he's kind of weird too, because, butlers in these type of films always are, it increasingly makes you wonder, is there more to this story than that you originally may have thought? And it kind of creates a mystery feel, since you keep thinking that something's gonna happen here. Maybe we're about to get a reveal of something that perhaps wasn't known when you first started the film. And as you pick up on clues and information is given, it does feel like the kind of mystery, or else maybe even a thriller in some cases, that really requires, I wouldn't say a fine-tooth comb. It's not trying to be like a Knives Out or something like that, where you have to take note of every little last thing and it's trying to build to this grand reveal or anything like that. Nothing about this film is trying to be grandiose. Instead, it wants to, I think it almost wants to do that whole respect the audience thing by not trying to lay everything out for you, but at the same time, it's not trying to be overtly smart about everything to the point it feels pretentious. It very much just wants to give you something that's not simple, but at least intricate enough to keep your interest, yet not so intricate that it makes you feel overwhelmed or else bored by it trying to be smarter than it is. It just wants you to enjoy what happens, maybe experience a little shock here and there, and then send you on your way. So, overall, when it comes to Lesson, it is perhaps one of the best paced films we've ever seen, especially in terms of doing that whole let's give you at least 2 to 3 minutes of just watching characters do pretty much nothing that moves the story forward, and they're just swimming, looking out into the distance while classical musical plays. For generally speaking, that annoys the hell out of me, feels like a waste of time, and like they're trying to add some fluff or time to a film, but for the Lesson, it's well used time to allow you to theorize, to allow things to unfurl a little bit so that you're not sort of like in an action movie where everything's just about fast paced and overwhelming you. And instead, it gives you all that you need in order to stick with what happened so far, prep for what happens next, and ultimately be satisfied with what the conclusion is.